Mental health escalating as focus shift to defeating the pandemic.
And I learned so much about coronavirus. And one thing that's for certain, don't let it dominate you.
Trump says don't be afraid upon return to White House. These and more coming up on Gambit. These and more coming up on The World Today. Stay tuned. Welcome back and thanks for joining us. My name is Santa Tunkara and now on to our first story. The coronavirus has led to a significant interruption for mental health service in 93 countries globally. The reason is that state focuses fully in eliminating the novel virus while neglecting psychological disorders. The demand for mental health is escalating greatly as the world's attention lies on how to defeat COVID-19. Ibrahima John reports.
A survey conducted between June and August 2020 in 130 countries revealed the false global data portraying the dreadful effect of COVID-19 on attaining mental health services. There stated an urgent need for an increment in funding to tackle the rise in cases of mental health during the period of the pandemic. Survey questionnaires focus on evaluating the existing and funding of mental and psychosocial support plans as part of the response plan to COVID-19. Ahead of WHO's October 10th mental health event in which world leaders, celebrities and advocates are to take part, Dr. Devorah Kestel, director of the WHO's Mental Health and Substance Use, said that it is paramount for countries to rightfully invest in the mental health plans to respond to the population's psychiatric needs.
It is important then that countries ensure proper investment to the mental health and psychosocial plans that are already available in order to make services ready to answer to the need of the population. It may be through establishing the basic services following the guidelines that we have already made available. It may be by implementing alternative services if the traditional ones are not possible due to the safe measures needed. The increase in funding is very important right now.
Dr. Kestel called upon governments the world over to aggrandize the care for people battling mental, neurological, and substance use disorders.
We know that there are direct and indirect consequences of the COVID-19 in the mental health of the population of countries affected by the pandemic, and we expect the demand to increase for care of people with mental, neurological, and substance use disorders. We are then concerned that services should be available to answer to the needs of those people.
Loss of employment, isolation, the death of close relatives in the COVID-19 period triggered mental health conditions and aggravated existing ones. Many people have increased their alcohol consumption and drug use as the world ventures into lockdowns to halt the spread of COVID-19. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Ibrahim John.
More attention needed for mental health patients as the number of mental health patients escalate. Now, Donald Trump returned to the White House on Monday after spending 3 nights at the Walter Reed Military Hospital, where he was receiving treatment after testing positive for COVID-19. Upon return to the White House, Trump removed his mask, got in and came out for a photo shoot. He also gave an address to the nation saying that people should not be afraid of the virus or allow it to dominate their lives. More in this report.
And I learned so much about coronavirus. And one thing that's for certain, don't let it dominate you.
The U.S. president said he felt better than he was 20 years ago after leaving a Maryland military hospital on Monday. Donald Trump had been receiving treatment at the Walter Reed Hospital for 3 nights before he decided he was returning to the White House, like he did from the start of the pandemic, not taking it seriously according to his critics. Trump removed his face mask and made a speech, even though he has not fully recovered and is capable of infecting others around him. His treatment will continue in the White House. Trump also gave assurance that the vaccine for COVID-19 was coming momentarily. He had paid a drive-past visit to his supporter in a car with 2 service staff on Sunday. Experts criticize him for breaching quarantine rules and exposing his own Secret Service men to the virus. Trump has been using his COVID-positive test to appeal to emotions of voters ahead of the November presidential elections, but it is not clear if voters will play into his emotion-playing tactics. The United States, under the leadership of Donald Trump, remains the worst hit country by the virus, with more than 210,000 deaths and 7.4 million confirmed cases, including Trump himself. His critics say it's because of his recklessness that the virus raged in America. For iAfrica TV, Sohna Tunkara. Now, from the United States, the 5th of October of every year is celebrated as World Teachers' Day. Educationists on this year are recognized for the valuable service they render to humanity. Those that inculcated knowledge to ignorance deserve applause for such magnitude. However, this year's celebration of World Teachers' Day comes in the midst of a global pandemic that led to the closure of schools as a preventive measure, making many private school teachers stay without receiving monthly salaries. Our reporter Ibrahim John tells us more.
Knowledge grows through the tools and wisdom of educators, and their presence makes the burial of ignorance possible to uplift literacy and awareness. Annually, October 5th is set aside to celebrate World Teachers' Day. This year's theme for the celebration of the Day of Knowledge Conveyors is Leading in Crisis, Reimagining the Future. Issa Sow, the Deputy General Secretary of the Gambia Teachers Union, told iAfrica TV in an interview that COVID-19 inflicted redundancy in private educational institutions.
It brought about redundancy, particularly for fellows within the private sector, because they are fee-paying institutions. And given the fact that schools have closed, parents are not paying in their school fees, and then the service providers are running out of business. Also, some of our teachers who are pursuing the academic programs are actually challenged because it's impeding the academic standing. But more importantly, it has also revealed the fragility of the education subsector, and then as a result, caught teachers unawares and seemingly creating, everlasting impact on our life.
Mr. Sow added that the teachers' union had remedied disputes that involved the private school teachers and their employers. The Deputy General Secretary noted that UTG is making efforts to ensure that the government provides financial assistance to private schools.
Indeed, first and foremost, we have resolved a lot of conflicts, industrial dispute between private school teachers and their employers due to pay issues. And then also we've been to the ministry on several occasions and supported them to develop the bill or budget, so to speak, that they are sent to central government for consideration. Initially, it went to the tune of $238 million or so. But also, more importantly, we were at the National Assembly Select Committee for Education, Training and ICT to lobby for the need for government to provide education subsidy to support our private school service providers.
There is no stipulated date set for the resumption of schools for teachers and students to bounce back to the classrooms.
So far, there is no date set yet, but as a union we are very much concerned because we participated in the development of the simulation model, and that model is asking for quite a good chunk of money in millions of dollars. But what is disturbing us as a union is that there are no signs or indications from the side of government on committing funds for that. And for us, as long as those funds are not available, we will be very much reluctant to talk about school resumption.
COVID-19 caused a global health emergency that negatively impacted social and economic activities. This forced many countries to venture into total or partial lockdowns, which resulted in the closure of educational institutions. On 17 March 2020, President Adama Barrow declared a state of public health emergency, which orders the closure of schools the subsequent day. As a result, more than 600,000 children in pre-primary to secondary schools and about 20,000 adolescents and youths attending higher, tertiary and non-formal education and training had their activities suspended. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Daisy.
That report was filed in by Ibrahima John, but Ndesisi reports. Now on to Gambia's latest COVID-19 update with 2 new deaths on Tuesday. The number of COVID-19 deaths in the Gambia has now reached 117. According to the National Situation Report released by the Ministry of Health, the country has so far registered 19 new cases, taking the total number of COVID cases in the country to 3,613. The 162nd Situation Report also indicated that 216 new laboratory test results were received from the National Public Laboratory, of which 10 returned inconclusive. The report further stated that a 48-year-old COVID-19 patient from Bakote escaped from one of the treatment centers. Meanwhile, 7 new patients recovered and got discharged from the treatment centers. The country currently has 46 people in quarantine, 1,253 active cases, and a crude case fatality ratio of 3.2%, according to health authorities. With that, we will take a short commercial break and continue with the rest of our stories. Welcome back. This is The World Today, and now to the rest of our stories. The National Assembly Select Committee on Local Government on Monday held a meeting with members of the Land Commission and the Ministry of Local Government and Lands at the National Assembly in Banjul. The meeting was centered on the modus operandi of the Lands Commission, which was said to be ineffective due to limited powers conferred on the Commission. More in this report.
Disputes over land ownership in the Gambia have reached an alarming rate, with some ending in clashes and loss of lives, while several cases still drag in the courts. It was against this backdrop that the President, Adama Barrow, set up a land commission on the 17th of September 2018 to investigate land disputes. The commission is tasked with looking into the root causes of land disputes, administering and advising the government on the issues of land-related conflicts. Justice Raymond Sock, the chairman of the Lands Commission, said his commission has embarked on a nationwide tour, and during the tour they advised Gambians on proper land use and planning to avoid disputes.
Provision of sufficient land both for residential purposes and attendant social amenities such as hospitals, health centers, markets, schools, mosques, churches, etc. 2. The availability of enough land for agricultural purposes to ensure food security and, where possible, for export. 3. Ensuring there is grazing land for livestock, cattle, sheep, goats, etc. 4. Reserving land for the youth for both recreational and entrepreneurial activities.
The Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Local Governments and Lands, Boba Sanyang, told the National Assembly Select Committee that his ministry does not adjudicate land matters. However, his ministry enforces cases adjudicated by the courts related to land disputes.
Ministry doesn't have the power and the authority to review a court judgment. We can only help judiciary to enforce a court ruling, but we cannot review a court case. So we always advise them, if you have an issue that is already adjudicated in the court and the judgment passed on, you can only go to a superior court to appeal. That is the only option left for you. But for us, we cannot do anything but only to help the judiciary to execute the court ruling.
The chairman of the National Assembly Select Committee for Local Government and Lands, Honorable Amul Nyasi, said he and his colleagues will endeavor to support the Lands Committee in fulfillment of their mandate.
If the Land Commission is instituted, I see no reason why you should not be given the support that you need to get you moving in the right direction. The Select Committee will give you all the support, and we will equally consult more with the Local Government Act to be au fait with what your TOR is. And we will also make reference to the provision in the Constitution. Because if this Parliament or if this government should see the need to set up a Human Rights Commission and give it all the support that it deserves, I don't see any reason why the Land Commission, your operationalization should be in segments.
The Land Commission is a 5-person committee headed by Justice Raymond Sock as the chairperson. Other members include Buba Bari, Nancy Nyang, Momodu S. Job, and Kemo Conte. The group has an uphill task to find out about the root causes of land-related conflicts and advise the government accordingly on the right approach to develop policies intended at tackling problems arising between communities and among individuals. Reporting for iAfrica TV, I'm Ibrahim Kebi Sonko.
From that report by Ibrahim Sonko, resolution on land conflict continues at the Ministry of Lands. Now, the Gambian government is constructing 2 key bridges in the country's upper river regions as part of plans to boost transportation and movement of people and goods. President Adama Barrow over the weekend paid a visit to the Basse and Fatoto bridges to access programs of work being done on these sites. More in this report by Ibrahima.
The Basse Fatoto Highway, the Basse Bridge, Fatoto Bridge, Sudwal and Chamoy bridges are some of the major projects being implemented in the Upper River region. The government said the infrastructure would trigger economic growth and brings prosperity that would help balance the development gaps in the Gambia and will cost about $81 million, about $4 billion. According to President Barrow, the Fatoto Bridge and other infrastructure projects in the area are life-changing initiatives.
Exactly. I can see.
It's a life-changing project. It's a project that is like a dream. You never thought of.
Yeah, we can imagine the image.
You understand?
So the cross,
you imagine.
yes, you are right.
Definitely, you know. And I think this will bring back Farouk. Farouk was almost dead. And it's the last town in the Gambia. So it's significant in our history. You know? Having this bridge here will bring back life to this place. You know? Trade and other things will all into. You know? And it will connect the south and the north.
The president said the COVID-19 pandemic derailed the construction process, but he is happy to see that something is being done about his election promises. The Basse Bridge will also have toll booths where motorists will pay for passage. President Barrow said this will allow for the government to use proceeds to finance other development projects.
Lifetime edifice.
Thank you.
Lifetime. It works 24 hours. And it also is a source of income for Gambia government for us to build other roads. But obviously people crossing here will pay. It will be a toll gate. But it is a grant. That money you will now imply it again to build other roads. Part of the roads we are building now, some of the money is from the Farfenni Bridge.
Adama Barrow has been criticized for disregarding COVID-19 rules by gathering large crowds, which some said is a strategy to canvass for votes. But what does the president himself think about his actions?
This is not about politics. This is about Gambia. This is about national duty. Because we have seen other countries, despite COVID, they are now innovative enough to move on. We said no, COVID cannot stop our life. It cannot stop Gambia moving. So let us also be innovative. Social distancing, we put on masks, we move on. Life has to continue. And we believe that we have to live with COVID. That's why we have been brave enough, we are innovative to make sure that we come here and move on.
The roads and bridges being built in the North Bank, Lower River, and Upper River regions from Farfenni to Basse constitute the first major infrastructural development projects of the Barrow administration. On May 19, 2017, China and the Gambia entered into an agreement on economic and technological cooperation, with China financing roads and bridges in the Upper River region. When completed, the 170-meter Fatoto Bridge will connect communities, goods and services, and will link Fatoto to Pasamas, while the Basse Bridge of 250 meters will connect Basse to Wuli. For iAfrica TV, I am Omar Ahmad Toure.
Now heading to Zimbabwe, teachers have expressed concerns over continuous threats from school authorities after embarking on a strike due to low salary scale. The teachers are also worried about their situation, with some considering quitting the noble profession for other means to earn a better living. However, the teachers are now awaiting the outcome of ongoing negotiations between their union and the government. Details of that in this report.
Tawanda Achipa is meant to be in class teaching physics, but says he can't afford to go to work. He says his wages can't keep up with the rising cost of living.
At this home, we've actually cut the number of meals that we are supposed to be having. Like the kids, we have just 2 meals, and the adults, we are living on a single meal a day. Sometimes when things are not balancing, we also tend to borrow from our colleagues, not teacher colleagues, by the way. Maybe the neighbors and so on, because that's how we can only make ends meet. I'm deep in debt right now. I don't know how I'm going to return back what I've borrowed.
His stress has been increased by the fear of losing his job for participating in the strike.
We are not enjoying working under threats every day. You've read it in the media. We are being threatened, the dismissals for just asking for a decent living. Yeah, it's one of those things. We also feel like we are being treated like second-class citizens. Why? Because they are giving preference to other sectors. They ignore the teaching field.
The teachers are pegging their hopes on talks between their union and the government which are underway.
We would need something like an equivalent of $520 for a professional teacher to continue to work in the schools. 520 is a wage that we are saying, okay, it's acceptable. It's not enough still, but it's a starting point for us to continue to work.
Currently, teachers earn the equivalent of $47. This is a school where Tawanda Wachipa teaches, and the longer that he stays away from this workstation, the harder it will be for his students to do well in their end-of-year exams. The longer the impasse continues, the more disillusioned he'll become.
I'm actually at a point where I don't know whether I should continue within this discipline or I should just leave it. Yeah.
And do what?
And find anything else that may be better than what is, or better than the situation it's in right now.
His departure could add to a flight of skills that threatens to compromise Zimbabwe's renowned education sector.
COVID-19 continues to affect the education sector. Now in Kenya's National Museum resumed operations after a 6-month closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Some parts of the museum were affected as activities were halted due to lack of financial means to continue operations. Despite the presence of the pandemic, museums across the country were able to define new means to do some activities to boost their revenues. More of that in this report.
Fort Jesus in Kenya's port city of Mombasa is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is grappling with the challenges of reopening after closing back in March due to COVID-19.
We depend on the revenue and some funding from the ministry to be able to run the museum. But because the revenue was not coming in, then the restoration, maintaining of some of the preservation activities was now stopped.
One of the research area which was affected was the underwater heritage. We are proposing to build an underwater museum within the coast of Kenya.
There was a serious impact whereby the research had to stop. Then it becomes easy now to come to the field, meet the fishermen and discuss, carry out field works, do archaeological surveys.
Across the country, museums have adopted measures to ensure the safety of visitors as well as staff. The cultural institutions have come up with new ways to boost engagement, visits, and ultimately revenue.
We now decided to look for other ways, and one of them was online virtual education programs. Last weekend, on Saturday, we had a program about the Swahili kitchen. We also had a virtual program of the tour, so that visitors at home, they can go online and just have a tour of the fort.
With Kenya slowly easing epidemic restrictions, hopefully more people will visit these cultural sites.
Well, viewers, that was all on the world today with me. Up next is Gambia 24 with Mariama Cham. Until then, bye for now.